Welcome to Ofofo Studio. I have with me today Andre and Jorge from Ethiack. Ethiack are into autonomous ethical hacking. What it means, we're going to go into it a bit in a bit from now. But let's start with some of the problems that exist in the industry. Most people think that pen tests are good by themselves. They secure the apps and they keep them secure till the time you get them done. However, that's not the case, as I found out by briefly interacting with Andre and George. Andre, what do you think? Are pen tests enough?
Hey, it's very good to be here. Yeah, the pen tests are the thing of the past, basically, because they lack frequency and they are carried by mostly what we call traditional pen testing companies, basically.
Right.
So they are mostly checklist based and they verify like all these controls if they are in place, and in terms of compliance, they also focus a lot on that. And yeah, so they don't provide the results that companies need to actually detect the most critical vulnerabilities.
Okay. Okay. So, in your experience, have you come across companies who've gotten pen tests done but are still not secure? And what were those vulnerabilities that you came across?
I mean, it's like impossible to be 100% secure, but certainly
Right.
pen tests will reach maybe 10%, 20%. I'm not sure.
Mm.
But I mean, if we do it in a continuous way with
Mm-hmm.
extremely qualified people and talented creative hackers,
Mm-hmm.
you'll basically reduce the probability of an attack to almost 0% because you have a lot of elite hackers trying to push your scope to detect the most impactful vulnerabilities,
Right.
and in that way it's going to be much more difficult for the bad actors to exploit those vectors, right? um, so yeah, I mean, even we are focusing on the human part of it, but we can do a lot with automated hacking, basically with scanning, what we call scanning.
Mm-hmm.
But in our case, we do more than that. But we'll get there, I guess.
See, Ethiac has a unique approach of mixing automated scanning and manual testing by ethical hackers, right? George, can you elaborate on a little on that, please?
Yes, of course. Thank you. So basically, what we do here, and I just wanted to basically add to what Andres said as well, that in the situation that the problem here is not only about the pen testing, because the pen testing we can solve it with hacking, basically manual hacking, the bounties and also the hackers in approach. But the problem is about scanning, right? The problem with scanners, and when you try to do this continuous testing, and why continuous testing is important, because there is new vulnerabilities arising every day. Okay,
Right.
for example, just to tell you the situation right now, we have 70 new CVEs coming every day. So if the problem with pen testing is frequency, as Andres said, is if we do a pen test today, tomorrow we have 70 new CVs more in the market. So are we protected? 1 month later, we have how many CVs more, right? That's a problem with pen testing is frequency, right? And then you go
Right.
for the scanning. The
Mm.
but and the scanning is cool. It allows you to do continuous testing, right? The problem with the scanners today, the situation is that scanners give you false positives, and it's not 1% of false positives, 45% average false positives.
Wow.
So this is incredible high, right? And no CISO, no security team will trust a scanner anymore, right? So yeah, basically what happens with scanners, scannings, they give you like continuous testing, but the problem with scanners that they have false positives. So they have more than 45% false positives, which is incredible high. And no security team, no CISO will trust a scanner anymore. So when the alerts coming in, and can be hundreds of alerts per day, they will be they will get burned out just with the vulnerabilities that they
Yeah.
receive, right? So the idea here is, how do you basically combine both approaches in order for you to first reduce the false positives, and we can do that with our autonomous hacking, because we can reduce false positives to low than 1%. Okay, we have this proof of vulnerability technology that allow us to do that.
Mhm.
And then, as the machine is not good enough or is not creative enough, you put hackers on top of it that will find the most impactful vulnerabilities, right,
Got
on
it.
top of the machine.
So, what does the word autonomous mean when you're combining it with hacking? I
Yeah,
understand
so
ethical hacking. I don't understand autonomous ethical hacking.
yeah, autonomous.
Yeah.
Autonomous is like you can say automatic, right?
Okay. Hmm.
But what is the difference between autonomous and automatic? Automatic means that you are doing everything automatic, right?
Right.
So everything is run by a machine. So everything will be a scanner. If you
Yeah.
do autonomous, what you say is the same thing as autonomous drive, right? That there is someone that is driving for you. Can be a
Hmm.
machine. So there is
Yeah.
there is anything that is something that is driving for you. You don't need to do anything. We will do it for you. You
Hmm.
just need to be there and act on the results, right? So if you think about driving, it's like that. If you jump on a Tesla will drive you,
Yeah.
but you are still there. If something
Right.
happens, you need to take the wheels, right?
Right.
So the idea with autonomous ethical hacking is that. So it's ethical hacking because we will ethical hack you, we'll
Right.
find your vulnerabilities, and it's autonomous because we will take care of it. And the only
Hmm.
thing that you need to do is basically act on those results and mitigate those vulnerabilities the fast as you can do, because then you will be prevented from cyber attacks.
Right. So, how do you I'm assuming that you must have a lot of ethical hackers on your team, right? So, how do you? And I don't think it's an easy task to assemble a team like that, right? Because there are enough incentives for hackers to become bad actors, right? So how do you incentivize them to be ethical?
Yeah, so we have like around 40 to 50 hackers right now working
Wow.
with us. I mean, we are offering them good rewards for what they do.
Hmm.
We are fair with them basically, and we highly appreciate their work. I'm a hacker myself,
Yeah.
so we try to implement that as well. But in terms of education, for example, the we are pushing a lot, even in terms of press, for example, here in Portugal, or podcasts like this,
Hmm.
advocating for ethical hacking, basically. So
Yeah.
we defend that hacking is not a crime, basically, cracking
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And we are here also, as many companies and associations in the market,
Hmm.
we are here to demystify the word hacker. Hacker is a creative individual that
Hmm.
is here to help the people and companies to improve and protect the privacy of their users, right? By protecting their data and their systems. Otherwise, we won't be able to trust these systems, right, in
Right.
society. So we advocate for this, and that makes the hackers trust us as well. So that's pretty much what we do. What we do.
Excellent. So Andre, you touched upon you being a hacker yourself, right? And I
Yeah.
know that you're probably one of the most sought after hackers in all of Europe, I guess. So can you
Kind of. I
can
would
can
say
you
that. But
can you elaborate on that experience a bit? Like, what was it like? How did you get started on this, and what led you to meet George and start Ethiac?
yeah, for sure. So basically, first, I'm a brother of George. Basically, since we are 3 years old, so we have known each other for a lifetime. And
Nice.
basically, so we followed different paths. And basically, I started to explore, computer engineering, and then I moved on to information security. I created a CTF team in the University of Porto, where I give classes right now as
Nice.
well. And so basically, after the course, I tried to go to hacking competitions. I won one of them as the most valuable hacker, with
Hmm.
HackerOne back in the day in 2018. And so we were already talking that, okay, we want to do a company and stuff like that. And I was really lucky to find the co-founder that, will take care of all the business side of things, like George, right? Because I'm a hacker and I love hacking, and George loves business, so it's like the perfect match, basically. So that's pretty much how things happen. We tried to create companies. We failed as well. Maybe
Mhm.
George want to elaborate on that as a serial entrepreneur that he is. But we failed multiple times, and then we are here and we are being successful, basically.
So, George, I mean, why don't you elaborate more on the entrepreneurial part of it? So, what were these failures like? What did you work on earlier, and what are your responsibilities today? If you can just go through that.
Oh, of course, yeah. So as Andrea said, we know each other for a long time. I think uh, we we decided so many times to create companies, right, and to create projects. I think we build stuff. There was sometimes that didn't work out, right? I don't say that it's a failure. Of course, you can connotate the word failure as a positive or a bad. A
I think it's
negative
positive.
word,
Yeah.
right?
Same.
For
Yeah.
me, it's a positive, right? Like when
Yeah.
you fail, you can move faster and you can go for a new
Correct.
goal, right? Uh,
Yeah.
I think it's better to fail than to not know that you are failing, because if you not
Right.
know that you are failing, you continue there for a long time, right? So
Yeah.
we already had either companies, we had projects that didn't go well, uh, but then I think we got right this time. So
Mhm.
and Ethiack as 1 year old, we are growing. Uh, in terms of what I do here, is I'm the CEO, right? Like what I do is more business strategy and sales. I do a lot of sales still.
Right.
And yeah, I would say that this time we got it right because we have good clients, we have good customers. We are protecting in less than 1 year. We grow to almost 30 customers that we are
Wow.
protecting right now
Hmm.
continuously. So it's not, as you know, you are in cybersecurity. It's not an easy market. It's a
It's
market
not.
of trust.
Yeah.
So when you get a customer and you know how to protect him, I think he will stay with you forever.
Yeah.
And that is basically why I like this, why we like to work on cybersecurity. And to answer for the hacker question, I think it's also why hackers stay with us, right? Because they see the results that they can provide. They are
Right.
identifying vulnerabilities. For example, I can tell you that we are protecting the airports here in Portugal.
Wow.
So all the airports are tested by us.
Hmm.
And of course, you know that when you identify a vulnerability in a critical infrastructure like an airport, you know
Yeah.
that you are doing something, right?
Right.
Because you can be saving lives, for example. So
Yeah.
I think more than rewarding hackers, which is of course important, is to respect their freedom, because
Absolutely.
hackers, you cannot put hackers on a 9 to 5 job. So
Yeah.
I think startups that try to do that, they will fail
Right.
anytime soon. Uh,
Hmm.
and then use them as they do best, and create a culture around them. So if you treat them with respect, and okay, you are the heroes of this journey, you are here
Right.
to protect this business, you are identifying vulnerabilities in critical infrastructures around Europe right now,
Yeah.
for example, but we are going
Yeah.
global. I
Mm.
think people will trust you and will continue
Absolutely.
doing business with you, and that's the best part of
100%.
cybersecurity.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So, as a business, what is a typical engagement with Ethiac like? So, when you like, let's start from the start, right? A business
Exactly.
approaches you with a problem statement saying, I need to be secure. So, what do you start with? What is the engagement like?
Yeah, usually you know that it's not so easy. I
Yeah,
hope
it's not
that more business would come to us and say, okay, yeah, my guy, I want to be secure. Usually it's not like that. Usually
yeah,
you need to go after them
right,
and tell them that they need to be secure, and show them why, right?
yeah.
Um,
So, what do you
and so,
show them? What do you
yeah,
show them?
so like our approach right now is very interesting, because like what we are doing is we developed with all this process. We were able to develop also a non-intrusive external attack surface tool. So
Okay,
basically, what it allows us is to give to the organization with non-intrusive methods, because you know that there is a lot of people doing pen
yeah.
testing without being requested to do,
Right,
which is
right.
illegal, by the way, for all of you
Mhm,
around there.
mhm.
But what we do is like we scan their external attack surface, so what is exposed to the web of the
Okay,
business, and we do that with non-intrusive methods. So just a recon, um, and that to allow us to for example, understand how many assets do you have exposed to the web, right? So because a digital organization is like a city, right? Like you have a
Yeah.
lot of buildings and you need to know which buildings you have. So from the
Yeah.
outside. So from the outside, I will tell you like you have all these assets that are exposed, and you have, for example, these SSL certificates that are invalid, this amount of assets exposed information. So
Yeah.
we show them this situation. Of course, it's just 1% or less that what we do in our product, but at least that gives a little bit of interest of the organization, right?
Right.
And then they go and okay, can we do a full analysis? And that is
Yeah.
one thing that we do. So we have a free 1 month autonomous ethical hacking solution, right? So the idea is like you can join, you can go ethiack.com and sign up for this solution. So we go and tell them to sign up for this free trial,
Okay.
and after that we are able already to go much more deep, right? So we identify vulnerabilities, we identify all the assets that are exposed, all the problems that they have, right? And we give them solutions on how to mitigate that. After that, if they see the value and if the tool is working correctly for them, which it's the bigger organization is and the more infrastructure they have, the best value they will get from our tool, of course.
Right.
The more technology that they are, and then after they have these vulnerabilities, after that they can download the report of their situation, and they will now start working with us if they see the value, and that will be like in a continuous approach. So we will get, if they just want the machine part, the machine will do this work 24/7. So we are not like a scanner that just runs once per week or once per month. We are 24/7 monitoring your business and identifying vulnerabilities as they arise.
The scanner keeps running even with the business processes continuing.
Continuously. So
Wow.
the idea is we are monitoring you 24/7, and we can our machine is basically able to understand if your infrastructure changes. So for example, if you push code, we know that you pushed code and we run tests again, or when we update like our testing or our vulnerabilities database, we'll run tests.
Right,
So
right.
it works very different than a scanner, because a scanner basically you have a amount of tests that they will run in a specific point of time, right? Weekly or monthly or whatever.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We use machine
Right.
learning to basically understand your infrastructure and test your infrastructure based on technology, based on assets, based on ports. So we test, our testing applies to your infrastructure, and the tests are always different, right? So we are like testing it also to not overcharge your network. Okay.
Got
And then we'll do that continuously. We'll deliver reports and everything. And if you want manual testing, we will launch events with hackers
Okay.
to go on top of the machine. These events typically go for 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
And then you can launch several events during the week. But the idea is for you to customize the scope, and for our hackers can go deeper on that scope and identify more impactful vulnerabilities than just a machine. Right?
Got
And basically it's that.
Yeah. So when it comes to organizations, there are vulnerabilities in their infrastructure, but also in teams, right? Like how do you protect? How do you secure the people? How do you prevent social engineering attacks, for example? How does that happen?
Yeah, so that's not our main focus right now,
Okay.
but still,
Okay.
we have conducted some tests on those vectors basically. So it's all about offensive security, right? So
Okay.
we try to act as the attackers basically. So we have done upon special requests, social engineering attempts authorized by the customer, obviously, but also PII. Research on and housing techniques on, for example, the deep web, for example. So
Right.
for some premium customers, we do that. So our best hackers that are basically elites on that, they will try to find all this data about business executives, for example, and we'll create a very special report on that. But again, that's very, very custom, because our main focus
Mm-hmm.
is to detect vulnerabilities in systems, right?
Got
Because
it.
we
Yeah.
believe and we know that there are less vulnerabilities in people right now because it's natural that they'll be more conscious about all these problems as we use more and more technology, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and as we have more operations, basically transitioning for the digital world,
Mm-hmm.
we'll have more vulnerabilities in digital operations, right?
Correct. Correct.
So we are already focusing
Mm-hmm.
since the beginning, mostly on system based vulnerabilities, and especially everything that is exposed, like George was
Mm-hmm.
saying, and we try to be the first to detect that specific vulnerability.
Got it. Got it. See, you
Yeah.
just use the term offensive security, right? So I see that being mentioned a lot by George too. George, can you elaborate on what offensive security means, and what how is that as a philosophy different from like the regular security that you get from other companies?
um, I think it's basically a term that is it separates two worlds, right? And I think it's important to separate this. Right, you have cybersecurity. You have two ways of doing it. You have the defensive and you have the offensive, right?
Right.
Um, the defensive is usually what we see more and what is more in the market, right?
Right.
The defensive means that it will be reactive, okay,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
not preventive. So defensive is reactive. So what do they do? For example, firewalls, VPNs, um, CMs, all these tools.
Yeah.
What they do is basically they they are, imagine an house, right? They are like inside the house, and it's like a alarm system. The
Right.
alarm system, what does it do in your house? So basically, if an attacker comes in, the alarm system
Distressing.
will ring, will
Yeah.
call the police, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But the guy is there, okay?
Hmm.
Then it only means that you now need to react and you need to take the guy from your house as soon as possible, right?
Got
So
it.
you are reacting to cyber attacks. You are not preventing them, right?
Yeah.
That is the defensive side. So you are like inside your system. You already know. The offensive side is for you to put yourself in the position of an attacker, right? So you are now outside of your house. You
Mm-hmm.
are seeing the house from the outside, and you are trying to enter the house.
Right.
If you enter the house, if you like, for example, go and break the lock or something like that, you know that there is a vulnerability inside that part. So maybe you need
Right.
a better lock, or maybe you need to close your windows, right? For example, the alarm system will not know if your windows is open or not, right?
Yeah.
The alarm system
Yeah.
will just monitor your windows. But
Right.
if you know that the window is open, why don't you close it, right? So the
Right.
idea of offensive security is like you put yourself in the position of an attacker, you
Mm-hmm.
try to come in and you prevent. So offensive security is proactive security, is preventive security. So you will be able to detect what are your fragilities, what are your vulnerabilities, and you
Mm-hmm.
act on that before you really have an attack, right? The problem on what we are seeing in the market, just the situation right now in the market is what is you see billions of dollars being spent in cybersecurity, and
Right.
still we are insecure.
Yeah.
Why does that happen? Because most of the organizations are spending money on defensive solutions and reactive solutions, and they are, when there is an attack, they spend a lot of money
Yeah. Yeah.
with trying now to react to this attack, right?
Yeah.
If you spend the same amount of money in preventive solutions, I don't think you would have so many cyber attacks as you have today, right? So
Mm.
now what you need to do is basically that is like go for the offensive side, try to understand what are your vulnerabilities, and if you act on that soon, you will prevent at least 90% of the cyber attacks that can happen.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Right. Can you give me some anecdotes or some stories with your customers? I mean, like, if they, I'm sure there must be some stories in which the organizations approached you while they were not very secure, and now they're at a credible position where they are secure to most attacks. Is there an anecdote like that? Andre, George, anyone?
I mean, I can pass the ball to Andre a little bit, but the idea here
we
is like, that we cannot like share so many details about like,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
but of course we can anonymize
Without
some
taking
stuff.
names, without taking
Yeah.
names, if there is any story. Yeah.
So, for example, what I for me it was very impressive. Like 3 to 4 years ago, weeks ago, was basically one enterprise that told us like, and we are talking here about enterprise, right? We can talk also SMEs. We have
Yeah.
both customers here, but for enterprise, the CISO come to us, and they were very reluctant in testing our product because basically they had all the products that you can imagine in terms of cybersecurity, right? So, for example, they had all the top quality scanners. I'm not going to give names, but you know what I'm talking about, from like Fortune 500 company, cybersecurity,
Yeah.
basically that. So they
Yeah.
have all these scanners,
Mhm.
very, very big scanners, and very renowned scanners, right? And basically they tried our product. Our product identified vulnerabilities that these scanners couldn't identify.
Mhm.
They were all valid, right? So they were not false positives. So now what this guy told me is that, okay, now what I do first is I look to Ethiack results. If there is any vulnerability there, I know that will be impactful and I know that will be valid. And
Yeah.
then I look at the others, because what happens is that these scanners are more, they care more about compliance
Right.
than about really impactful
Yeah.
vulnerabilities, right? And
Right.
that is
Right.
another problem of cybersecurity, which is, are we doing cybersecurity because we want to be secure, or are we
Yeah.
doing cybersecurity because we want to be compliant?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
yeah. So that was an enterprise. Now I pass the ball to Andrea to say more about customers.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that, I was already moving on to the topic of setting the proper priorities and severities on the findings that we produce, right? And when you have the one of the biggest problems that we have, cybersecurity business in the market that don't work on this, or they have almost no experience or qualified people in the security game, right?
Right. Right.
And like George was saying, it's a market of trust,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And from the beginning, we just decided that, okay, we are going to tell them that the vulnerability is critical only if it is critical,
Mm.
because just a regular business person from a big cybersecurity company, they'll say, oh, we want to sell more, so you're going to put everything as critical or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And that is a big issue in the cybersecurity market right now. It's producing a lot of noise, the burnout that George was mentioning as well. It's so many issues, like they are drowning on all this information, right?
Right.
So it's very nice to see not only this customer but other ones. They're like, yeah, we can trust you. Like, uh, if there's something that we need to worry about, you'll tell us right away.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll have more peace of mind, and that's really great to see. And regarding the other customers, I mean, it's just completely delightful to see how many customers we are protecting in terms of they didn't even try before ethical hacking or offensive security. They were only using all these firewalls and so on, and
Yeah,
doing the
for
ISOs.
example, Boladap. Now I was remember about Boladap, which is a case study that we are allowed
Yeah,
to
yeah.
talk about.
Okay. Yeah.
Boladap, we are working with Wagner, which is like, they are a Brazilian company in the event sector. So they are
Okay.
like basically ticket lines and stuff like that. Like they sell tickets
Got it.
to events, to music events, right? So they
Mhm.
have a lot of people, a lot of data protection that they need, right? So all of this. And this, they didn't do testing. So
Oh.
it's another completely different example, right? It's a company that didn't add test before, so they didn't do pen testing, they didn't do scanning, anything, right? And when we come in, like, we were also a little bit, okay, are these guys going to find stuff? Are not going to find stuff?
Yeah.
And we identified vulnerabilities, and now they are very happy, because what, for them and for SMEs, I think that is one very valid point, is that they told us that now the amount of knowledge they gained from us in terms of software development was huge, because we are identifying vulnerabilities in technology, right? And then as they have this customized approach with us, they talk with us, they understand how this vulnerability was identified, and now they are developing technology with that in mind, right? So it's not about just identifying vulnerabilities and being secure. It's also about the knowledge that you can gain when you are developing technology. And now you realize that, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that because
Yeah.
I need to care about security. And
Yeah.
that is a big problem in the software development world as well, because I don't see as a problem, but I will tell you why. But the idea is like software developers, they are not trained to
Yeah.
to develop secure software.
Right.
They are
Right.
trained to develop usable software, right?
Right.
And I think
In a
that's
fast
fine.
manner. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine, because when you are developing a technology, you need to be the most user friendly as possible. Okay,
Right.
that's why you need Ethiack, because now Ethiack can do the work for you and identify vulnerabilities, test your systems that you are using, and do that in a fast way. And then you correct these vulnerabilities, and you can continue developing technology as you like.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah,
So
100%. If like all the developers would write secure code by default, I mean, we wouldn't be here today
that's an
probably.
ideal
So
world. Yeah. No, but okay. So we interact a lot with small and medium businesses, right? So I'm sure that mostly you're selling to enterprises and larger companies, right? So when talking about smaller companies who have very little idea about what it's like to be secure, and the developers are more or less their focus is on shipping fast and shipping user friendly software, what are some basic tips that you can give to them so that they can be secure by themselves, Andre?
yeah, so in terms of code development, there are multiple guidelines that we would recommend. Also, because what we are seeing on Ethiack with our customers, I would
Right.
say that updating all the libraries using stuff like Dependabot, for example, on GitHub, it's a
Mhm.
huge plus to avoid certain CVEs.
Yeah.
Then accessing resources about web ethical hacking, web hacking. It's basically the technology that all these startups and all these SMEs use more. So if they just take a couple of hours to see some resources about, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, all these classical types of vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
they'll be able to avoid the most basic mistakes. Okay,
Makes sense.
so that's those are two main recommendations, but it's always about updating their servers as well. For example, on Ethiack, every single hour we update all our servers with the latest packages. I mean, that's probably too much in terms of frequency, but I mean, if they update at least one time per week or once per day, that's going to be a huge plus as well. So I think that those are probably the most basic tips, and also obviously trying to have load balancers, for example, on their infrastructure. Stuff like Cloudflare, for example, it's a huge
Yeah.
plus to prevent disruptions sometimes. So I mean, it will not prevent again disruptive attacks, but
Mhm.
it can be a basic layer that they can also use, right?
Yeah, I can add
Perfect.
one more.
Yes, please.
One more. So I think one more is use Ethiack, right? Like you said, and I wanted to demystify what you said about like we are selling to enterprises. The
Yeah.
situation is our biggest clients are enterprises, just
Hmm.
because it's easy to for them to understand the value, because they have more assets, they can
Right.
compare solutions, right?
Yeah.
SMEs, they usually don't use so many solutions, so
Yeah.
when they look at us, they don't understand what is the difference between us, for example, or a scanner or whatever. So there is more the process of educating, and that's why we are doing this with Ofofo. I think you are going to help us a lot on that. But our product was designed, and our mission was always, we want to we want preventive cybersecurity to be accessible to all. Okay, the problem today is that it's not easy for a SME to buy pen tests, to buy scanners. It's not cheap, right? Or to buy bug bounties. So that's why Ethiack exists. So we have in our pricing plan, and we designed everything to have a package for SMEs always, because we want, if we can protect you and we can test you, like, we will do it, okay, and we will help you. So that's the third topic. I think it's use Ethiack because it's easy for Andre to say, okay, be careful about SQL injections, be careful about that. It's not easy for SME that doesn't have resources, right? So if you use Ethiack, at least the machine part, and you have always continuous testing on your technology, you can develop the technology with peace of mind, because if you have vulnerabilities, we'll tell you, okay? The idea is you can trust on us that we'll only give you the vulnerabilities that really matter, and we will not like give you all these alerts as other scanners. So I think the best solution is use Ethiack if you want to know your vulnerabilities.
And how can they reach out to you, George? How do people get in touch with Ethiack?
It's very easy. Like, if you want to try the product, I told you have a free trial. You just go to ethiack.com and you have the sign up there. If you want to contact us, there is also a contact form. And I will say that if it's easy for you and you want also to understand a little bit more about Ethiack and have more customized experience as SME, I will say contact Ofofo. We are working with Ofofo. So I think these guys will help you, will pass the ball to us if they need. And I hope that we can test you soon.
Thank you, George. That was amazing. So I'll conclude this now. It was great catching up with you two both, and we sure look forward to another session with the two of you. Probably we'll talk about something else.
It will be a pleasure. Yeah.
Thanks, Andre. Thanks, George. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.